If you can just join me for a quick word of prayer real quick. Dear Father, again, we just pray and plead that you will join us again now and calm my nerves, I pray, and may you, through this story, may you show us something new, and may we know you more. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. If you have your Bibles with you, you can turn with me to Mark chapter 6. Mark chapter 6. Mark chapter 6 and verse 30. Yeah, actually, where did that clicker go? I think I'll need that. Thank you. All right. Verse 30 says, the apostles returned to Jesus and told them all that they had done and taught. They returned to Jesus. So where had they been? In the earlier part of the chapter 6, it talks about how Jesus had commissioned the apostles, gave them authority and power to go and, well, actually, give them authority over evil spirits even. And so the disciples divided up into 6 groups, 2 people each, and they went everywhere throughout the whole country, teaching, preaching, healing, and also casting out demons. Now, what does it mean, though, when Jesus says that he gave them authority? Does it mean that, like, the apostles and the disciples are, like, big and bad and important now? Is that what it means? Like, no. It means that, does it mean that, like, they inherently had the power to tackle the evil spirits? Of course not. It means that Jesus gave them authority over the spirits by calling on Jesus, by calling on God, and God could take care of that situation. Anyhow, the disciples come back, and here in verse 30, can you imagine the stories that happened? The stories they had to tell Jesus? The stories of demons being cast out. The stories of changed lives. The stories of healings. They have a lot to tell Jesus. So here in verse 30, the apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. But you can also see, though, a lot of people were probably following them back to Jesus. Verse 31 says, and he said to them, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. You can see this wasn't just 12 people. This was a lot of people hanging out. They wanted to see Jesus. They wanted to see the disciples probably. They wanted to hear more about Jesus. And Jesus wants to recharge. He wants to recharge with his disciples. Jesus himself was probably busy those times as well. And so he says, come away by yourselves in verse 31. Verse 32. And they went away in the boat to a desolate place, out in the middle of no place, by themselves. But that desolate place didn't last very long. What did it say in verse 33? Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they ran there on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. Now I don't know how they found out where they were going, but the crowds were so eager to be with Jesus. They were so eager to hear what he had to say. They were just running to him, running there. Can you see the intense desire of the people? They were so used to hearing what they had in the synagogues, hearing from the rabbis, hearing the fake man-made or stuff, the man-made rules that the rabbis were promoting, the man-made institutions they were promoting. And even today, religion can become almost a barrier than a conduit to God. Because the rabbis and the Pharisees, they were not really representing God. Anyhow, the crowds were eager to have spiritual truths. Eager. And so they were running there to Jesus. Running there to see him. Verse 34. And when he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. and he began to teach them many things. I looked up in the dictionary of compassion. It basically means sympathetic consciousness, awareness of others, distressed with a desire to alleviate. It's not just knowing about somebody's problems and sufferings, but desiring to alleviate that. Now, Jesus was tired, and they were hungry because they hadn't had time to eat. But what does he do? He sees their need. He sees them running to him, even though he's wanting time to recharge, even though he's wanting time to relax, maybe have some food. He sacrifices that, and he says, I'm going to spend today, and we're going to teach, we're going to help these people out. Jesus sees our problems. He sees when we suffer. He doesn't turn us away. That's a powerful lesson, I think, that we can go home with. And today, even, it's so easy. We are bombarded by problems and suffering in the world. You can barely watch the news and just see problems in the world, suffering going on. And it's really easy to be desensitized by it, to think it's like normal now, right? But Jesus isn't that way. He doesn't get desensitized by it. He doesn't cast it as some new normal. When Jesus sees people in need and suffering, even though he himself is tired and hungry, he stops and he does what he can to help. He sees the need to teach them. So hour after hour, Jesus is teaching them more about God's kingdom. The day's getting closer and closer toward evening. Disciples are probably hungry too, by the way. Again, why did they come here? Because they were hungry. They wanted time to at least to be by themselves. They were tired of people and they wanted to eat. But they see that they're in the middle of no place. There aren't any Taco Bells nearby. There aren't any food trucks nearby. And so after hours, they suggest what any ordinary practical thing. Like, if I'm sleepy, what should I do? I should go to sleep. If I'm hungry, I should go get some food. So that's what they suggest here in verse 35. When it grew late, verse 35, when it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place. This is out in the middle of no place. And the hour is now late. Send them away to go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." Something to eat. When we read this makes sense, right? This is a perfectly reasonable, like I said earlier. When you're sleepy, you need to go to sleep. If you're hungry, you need to go get some food. But what does Jesus say in verse 37? You give them something to eat. For whatever reason, Jesus said, I don't know why he said this, but in verse 37, he answered, you give them something to eat. You give them something to eat. I really wish I could see the look on their faces when Jesus said this. Because we read this story and we just kind of jump to the end, kind of knowing what's going to happen. But I had some kind of fun estimating how much food we're talking about here. So first of all, let's just pause. How big? The size of the crowd itself doesn't say exactly what number it is. We do know that there were 5,000 men. And so if we assume for a second, for every man there's a wife, maybe 3 kids, let's estimate 25,000. Maybe it was 20, maybe it was 30, I don't know. But let's just stick with 25,000 for now. A crowd of 25,000 people. Jesus has got to know that they don't have food for 25,000 people. I mean, they came by a little boat, and even if they had like 3 or 4 coolers, you think that would feed 25,000 people? No. I mean, could I fit that much food in my car? I don't think so. And actually, I did some calculations here to figure this out. Even if you wanted to give to each person one M&M, you would need 20 liters. 20 liters. So, the soda cans or soda bottles, they're 3 liters, right? The big ones. You would need like 7 of those. And that's just to give, not even a bite. That's just an M&M. We're not even talking about a meal, right? Not even a bite. Let's go further here, actually. What if you actually wanted to feed them? There we go. So if we start out with a count of, say, 25,000 people, And we assume each person eats 4 pitas. Maybe some do 5, I don't know. And each pita has 45 grams. Looked in the back of a nutrition facts. And we have the density of the bread. We would need 100,000 pitas. That would be 10,000 pounds of pita bread. How much space would that take? Pita bread's round, so it's going to take a little more space. You have to consider the packing volume. So we're talking about 1,000 cubic feet. 1,000 cubic feet of pita bread. Now, could I fit that in my car? Turns out, you can't. You would need a truck that would be, you need a 26-foot long truck like this. Jesus has got to know they don't have a truck like this on the boat with them. He has to know that they can't do this. So we already explored that they don't, when Jesus says you feed them, he has to know that they don't actually have this with them right now. So maybe he meant to go buy this food, right? Maybe you don't have it, maybe you go buy it. Well, that also can't be. So we need 100,000 pita bread, right? So at least at HEB, each pita bread costs 40 cents. So that costs $40,000. Now I know today's a different age and things are different, but so maybe I'm off by an order of magnitude here. So maybe just $4,000. Fine. Do you think they have that kind of money on them, or actually at all? I mean, they were always giving to the poor. I mean, first of all, they weren't rich at all anyway, but they're always giving to the poor. Judas was always helping himself to the money bag anyway. You know, in fact, if you recall later, when regarding the temple tax for Jesus, or actually for everybody, the temple tax was about $100 each per year. They couldn't even pay that. So if they can't pay the temple tax, do you think they have $40,000 on them? I don't think so. Again, don't take this number too exactly. It could be a little bit less, higher. But the point remains, even if it's an order of magnitude less, the point remains that they don't have this money with them. They don't have this kind of access to credit either, I don't imagine. So is Jesus messing with them? He said, what? You feed them. You feed them. You give them something to eat. Is this some kind of practical joke? We don't have the food. We don't have the money to go buy the food. Why is Jesus asking them to do something that they cannot do? They can't buy it. They don't have it. How can you give it then? Verse 37 ends with saying, so they respond by saying, shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat? $200. Now, in my Bible, there's a footnote that says what a denarii is. This is actually an above average footnote. At least in my Bible, it said that a denarii was the typical wage for working for 1 day in those days for a laborer. 1 day's labor. That's really neat because we can figure out how much people typically earn today for 1 day. Turns out that's $188 typically. And so if we take 200 of those, that's about $38,000. What is exactly what we said earlier about 40,000? Again, it doesn't have to be exactly this, but the point is, yes, it's a coincidence. Turns out both ways you do it comes out to 40,000. The point is, even if it's 20,000, 50,000, the point remains they don't have this kind of money. They don't have $40,000. So why would the disciples ask Jesus and say, why would they even ask this question? Why would they say, let's see, Jesus, we don't have this food. Should we go to the store and go buy $40,000 worth of food? Why would you say that if you don't have the money? Because I don't think when they said this, it really wasn't a question. They don't have $40,000. I think it was more of a statement, like a rhetorical question. Basically, it's a question they don't expect an answer. They're not trying to find the answer from this. They're just saying, we don't have $40,000. I mean, if Jesus had said, yes, go to the store and buy $40,000 worth of food, do you really think they would have been like, all right, let's go. Let's go to the nearest store, or first rent a big truck, 26-footer. Then we'll go to H-E-B, buy out the bread aisle, and we'll be back in about 2 hours. I mean, do you think they would have said that? No, because they don't have $40,000. They can't even pay the temple tax of $100. So why would they propose a solution for something that they cannot do? They propose a solution that they cannot do. Because from their perspective, they had no other option. Because what did Jesus say? You give them something to eat. And when they heard that, they heard that you, as in you, in and of yourselves, give them something to eat. You, by your own human abilities and efforts, give them something to eat. And we all know how utterly ridiculous that idea is. So was he just asking them an impossible task? Humanly impossible, sure. Was he trying to shame them though? Like, okay, I'm going to ask this question and then I'm going to show them. Like, do you think that was involved? Like, is that how Jesus works? We started out by looking at here, very first thing we said, Jesus gave them authority and empowered them, right? Did that mean that they literally had the power themselves to physically remove these demons from people by themselves? No, it means that with their connection to God, they could call God's agents to do that. Jesus doesn't ask us impossible things. They had just come back from a mission trip where God had used them in amazing ways to unshackle evil spirits from living in people, to heal people, to do crazy, amazing things. It wasn't them doing it. It was God working through them. So it's so easy to forget that when God asks us to do something, and that something seems impossible, he's really asking to work through us. I'll say it again. It's really easy to forget that when God asks us to do something, and that something seems impossible, that God is really wanting to work through you. Because Jesus doesn't ask us impossible things. It may seem impossible because we focus on the human part, right? There might be a thing in your life that you think is impossible to stop doing. And that is actually true, humanly speaking. Can we stop sinning ourselves? But Jesus, he knows our weaknesses. He knows, when we call on Jesus, but can God through us clean us up? Jesus knows our weaknesses. He knows how much money we have. He knows our time. It may appear to us that things are impossible, especially if we focus on us and not on Christ. That will be the result. It'll appear to be impossible. We will feel frustrated. Just like right then and there, the disciples are feeling a little bit frustrated. They're like, is this some kind of trap? What is this? Is Jesus playing with us? Like, he's asking us to give food, but we don't have any food here. We don't have any money. Like, what are we going to do? While it may appear that God asked the impossible, it's only because we're focused on what we can do. Our own abilities, our own money, our own finances, our own time, our own skills, our own experiences, our own personality, whatever it may be. When Jesus calls, and when Jesus asks us to do something, He enables. He enables us if we look to him. He enables us. You guys know how the story ends. Jesus asked the disciples to kind of gather the crowd into groups. They look around, they find a boy. He has 5 loaves, 2 fish. He tells them to sit down on green grass. He takes the food and he asks God to bless it. And that's the key part of this whole story. He asked God to bless this food, this very lack of food. Again, the crowd of 25,000 over there, they need a whole truck full of food now. But how much food do they have? I mean, I can probably hold it in my hand, right? This meager, pilly amount, produced humanly speaking, when preyed upon and when God blesses it, it becomes multiplied. It becomes multiplied. Verse 42, and they all ate and were satisfied. We live in a world with huge needs. And it's depressing because we're busy, right? We got busy lives. There's huge needs, though. Every year, 1 million children die of starvation, malnutrition. 1 million around the world due to things way beyond their control. Famines, wars, economic situations, mismanagement, who knows what. But 1 million. Yeah, we can donate a little bit of money here to ADRA or whatever, but are you really going to put a dent in this? It can feel depressing, doesn't it? 400,000 people die every year of malaria. And these are just global needs. And then we have local needs. People that you and I know have addictions. People that you and I know are lonely, are depressed, have financial problems, health problems. People that you and I know have an inaccurate picture of God. And I haven't even started. Is this a big list? It's not even complete yet. But I already feel depressed. And we haven't even gotten started. There's huge needs, right? Are we just going to turn our back and be like, well, I'm doing all right? I'm not here to tell you what needs are more important than others. God works in amazing ways, and God puts different burdens on different people's hearts. But I hope from this story that we learn that when God asks us to share, the bread, the light, the experiences, your time, your material that you have or you don't have, when you give and you pray, God can take that and multiply it. Even if it is nothing. Jesus knew. Was Jesus surprised? Jesus wasn't surprised. Jesus knew they didn't have anything, or much at all. But he still said what? You give them something to eat. And Jesus wasn't being cruel here. When we give, even the little dent that we can give, and by faith, trust in God and prayerfully say, God, take this and please bless it and use it for your purpose. God can and will multiply that. That's why it's so important that when we give our offerings are here at church. You can do it here, you can do it at home. When we give to God, we should pray and say, God, please use these money for your purpose and use it and help them to be wise as they spend it. And please multiply it. You give them something to eat. And Jesus comes to us and he says, you give them something to eat. It might be people that you know. It might be a classmate. It might be your walk with God that God wants you to share. And you might look at your own walk with God, your own moral history, your own shaky history with God, your own, which doesn't seem like much to share, your embarrassing moral failings. And you might think that you don't have much to share at all. But when God calls you to share your story, to share your testimony with somebody, God can take that and multiply it and really impact somebody's life. Somebody that you know might be struggling with chemical addictions. Any kind of addiction, honestly. They might want to hear, maybe you don't struggle with chemical addiction. But that person might need to hear about some other thing that you struggled with in the past. Selfishness, pride, you name it. God can take that little that you have, that little thing that you have in common, which might seem nothing. God can take that little that you have in common, and if you give it, and if you prayerfully give it, God can use it for his purpose. You and I know so many people who are struggling. Financially, health, medically, finances, relationships, loneliness. A second lesson here is that when Jesus gives the command to give, it seems to imply that other people's problems are not just isolated to them. Jesus asked the disciples to take on a problem that they could rightfully say, not my problem. What do you mean? Like, we feed them? Bring your own food type thing. Jesus loads other people's problems onto the disciples, saying, you feed them. Even though they, humanly speaking, didn't even have a solution. It wasn't even a partial solution. They had no solution for this problem. But still, Jesus loads up onto the disciples other people's problems. And sometimes Jesus might load up onto us another person's problems, other people's problems. Even though we may not have the solution. None at all. No partial solution. But it's easy to think that classmate over there who's struggling with depression, think, well, not my problem. That person in the hospital, that person in prison, not my problem. No need to visit them. That person on the side of the road, not my problem. For the suffering person in a war-torn and famished country with the crazy stuff going on, not my problem. But again and again throughout the Bible, it makes it clear that we are our brother's keeper. You know, I'm reminded that Cain said, what did he say? It was the spirit of selfishness in Satan when Cain said, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, Cain. In fact, we kind of are. When the rich young ruler asked Jesus, who is my brother? Jesus made it very clear that there are no racial, no ethnic, no barriers that prevent us from helping other people. No excuses. No excuses. Other people's problems are not just isolated to them. And as we follow God, as we walk with him each day, God can and will put other people's problems onto us, even though we don't have the solution. But that's okay. That's okay. If we keep the focus not on us, but on who? God. Because who has a solution? Who does have that? He is the solution. He is the provider. He is the healer. He is the one who can provide food. He is the one who can solve these problems. So this command to give, even when we don't have, is not being cruel. It's really a promise. When we give the little that we have, when we give $20 on the tithe envelope to Audra, and we prayerfully do that. We prayerfully say, God, use this money in Audra to help other people. Not just this money here, but multiply it somehow. Did God multiply that? He can. When we identify with other people, God can, and prayerfully help them through God, He will multiply. So when God calls you and me to share something to our neighbors, when God puts somebody else's problems on us, even though we don't have the solution, don't be like, well, God, what are you doing in my life? Prayerfully say, God, I don't have the solution here, but I know that you do. I know that you do. Because in the end, Jesus will heal, Jesus will feed, and Jesus will be the one who provides the solution. Father, I pray that when you put burdens on us from other people, that we will not look inward, we will look to you. And when we give, and when we prayerfully seek you to multiply these efforts, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.